Hey guys, Neil Kachik checking in here from Trench Fitness at trenchfitness.com with video blog number 2 of this contest prep season. Last week we covered patience and persistence as it pertains to fat loss, training progress, and just everything in life in general. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I had a lot of positive feedback and comments, so I'm going to try and keep this going. I'm going to try and do one every week, as I've made that commitment to myself to do that for this contest season. So video blog number 2 today, I just want to cover training and more specifically weight training or resistance training as it applies to muscle mass development, physique development, and just body recomposition. And I want to stay away from getting into a lot of the science side of it. And just more so talk about a few basic principles, things that I've learned over the years, going from doing every sort of routine, exercise, sets and reps, supersets here and there, to just kind of getting back to the basics and sticking to what works. So first of all, when we talk about training, we're talking about, resistance training where we're using a weight to apply a stress or a stimulus on a specific muscle or group of muscles to hopefully elicit some sort of increase in muscle size, or else, and along with that also comes usually an increase in strength of that muscle. So when we talk about that stimulus, we're talking about a stress. So a lot of people have this misconception that exercise and training is good. So that means that more must be better. For example, if doing 3 sets of 10 of bicep curls is good and it allows them to get stronger, then doing 10 sets of 10 on bicep curls is going to be even better, and it's going to help those biceps become even bigger and even stronger, which may be the case, but unfortunately your body has built-in mechanisms that allow for only a specific and certain amount of growth and development at any one given time. So just because you did those 7 extra sets of 10 for bicep curls doesn't mean by the next training session that your bicep is automatically going to be an inch bigger. Especially for natural trainees, growth, progress, and just overall strength development is a very, very slow process. Someone who's very, very new to training, they might be able to see increases in strength quicker, but in the whole scheme of things, it still is a very, very slow process. So just keep that in mind when you are training. Be mindful of the fact that training, exercise, and really any sort of activity, where you're applying that stress on the body, if it's not weight training, it might be aerobic training as well, where it's, applying that stress and that stimulus to the heart and the cardiovascular system. At the end of the day, it is still a stress, and from that stress, your body needs to adapt and recover through rest, nutrition, adequate protein intake, adequate calorie intake, and it's not just a matter of continuing to do more and more and more, but doing just enough, allowing for that rest and recovery, and then coming back and continue applying a slightly greater stimulus so your body then adapts to that. So that leads me to my next point of ensuring that you're not always applying the same stimulus. So oftentimes we see people who go into the gym, they have their regular set routine, they follow it every single training session, and they use the exact same weight every single training session. So the problem with this is that your body has already adapted to using that weight. So you've applied that stimulus, it's recovered, maybe it's come back stronger, but you're still applying that same stimulus. So really you're not eliciting any sort of change at all other than just maintaining that specific level. So the key there is that you always want to be looking for some sort of progression, whether it's an increase in weight, an increase in reps, an increase in the distance of your, maybe your endurance event, an increase in your speed, an increase in the quickness that you're doing a movement, or the amount of power that you're able to generate, but there needs to be some measure of progress over time, and some way of tracking that as well, so to keep yourself accountable. So that's very, very important as well. Um, the other thing that I want to talk about is just applying the concept of quality over quantity when it comes to, we're going to talk about specifically weight training. Um, so, for example, we'll take a squat, for example. Uh, Being able to perform that movement kind of optimally, from a biomechanical standpoint, so as your body's designed to perform a squat, as opposed to just taking a squat, doing it as, maybe a half squat where you're just stimulating, muscle development in the quads, as opposed to, full overall leg development where you're also hitting your glutes, hamstrings, quads, and all the muscles in your hips as well. So, that's where sets and reps are important, yes, but also the quality that the movement is being performed within that set and rep range is equally, if not more important. So doing, a 5x5 on squats, if you're only doing half squats, you're really only getting the development on the quads. If you now take that 5x5 and you do full depth squats, where you're keeping your knees out, you're engaging all the muscles of the glutes and hips, that exercise all of a sudden becomes 10 times harder. You're stimulating 10 times more muscle mass, and you're developing an overall more balanced physique that's going to end up being stronger in the long run. So just learning to check your ego at the door, if need be, getting a coach or a trainer to help you learn proper form and technique, primarily on the main, compound lifts. Learning to apply tension on your lifts, so controlling the weight through full ranges of motion, making sure that the proper muscle groups are loaded before you perform any sort of lift. So on a deadlift, you're making sure that your glutes, your hips, your hamstrings are all loaded, as opposed to primarily loading your lower back and placing whatever load you're lifting on your lower back. So that all comes into play, and that just touches back on that quality of the movement over quantity. So it's not always a race to get a specific number of sets. If those sets and reps, if those sets and reps are shitty, your form's, really poor, and you're not even training the muscle group that the exercise is designed to train, you're not going to get that progress, that development, and that adaptation over time. So you're looking for maximal muscle stimulation, and just applying those principles. And the other aspect of this is that it is more challenging. Doing a full depth squat is more challenging than, loading, 20 more pounds on the bar and doing a half rep squat. So a lot of this is mental as well as physical. So, some of it's learning to just retrain your motor patterns and your movement patterns, getting rid of bad habits that may have been previously developed, whether it was due to just a lack of knowledge or being under poor guidance with a trainer. But training those new movement patterns over time, sticking with the basics, and sticking with a program that is optimally designed for your goals and allows for progression. And that's kind of the last point I want to touch on, is just sticking with the program and sticking with the plan. And this is also relates to the patience and persistence video blog that I did last week. So, training progress takes time. It's going to take time for you to learn the exercises and get good at the exercises. It takes practice, just like anything else. Learning to play the guitar, you don't all of a sudden become a great guitar player in, 1 or 2 weeks, just like all of a sudden you don't become a great squatter in 1 or 2 weeks. So if you're, incorporating squats in your program for 2 weeks and then, oh, my muscle needs a different stimulus, or it needs a change, we need to shock the muscles and incorporate a different exercise. Now all of a sudden you've taken what you've learned for squatting and you've taken it out of the program, and you're not practicing it anymore, and you've kind of lost the development that you've gained from that, in terms of movement patterns. So let the exercises work for you. Take the time to apply patience with the exercises. Learn to do them properly and safely, and don't jump around from program to program just because the progress is slow. Rather focus on the main compound movements, keep those as a staple in your program, and continually work at getting better at them. I've been training for 8 or 9 years now, and I'm still working on perfecting and tweaking my squat, my deadlift, my bench. They've been a staple that whole time, but they can still continually get better. You know, and that's what allows for the most advancement and progress over time. So hopefully this helps you guys out a bit in terms of just understanding the training process, the adaptation a little bit easier. You know, stick to the basics, try not to overcomplicate things. You know, apply sound nutritional principles where you are eating enough calories to facilitate muscle growth from your training. Keep in mind that if you do want to lose body fat, you're going to need to be operating in a slight caloric deficit. You know, and over time, and the longer you operate in that deficit, the more it will affect how much kind of muscle mass or strength you can attain as well. So be mindful that it's not always about losing fat, you know, and getting to a low body fat, that you should also take times where you're also eating at maintenance or slightly above to allow for progress in terms of muscle and physique development. So I think that covers it for today, you guys. If you have any questions, email neil@trenchfitness.com. If you have any ideas for videos coming up, again, just fire me an email. And I hope this helps you out, and happy training to everyone, and have an awesome day and night. Thanks, guys. The strength of one's demise, moving strong out.